We good now?
Yeah, can you hear me?
I can.
Okay.
Yeah, that was weird. What's up, brother?
Peace.
Peace,
All is good.
peace. I'm gonna try to see if this my audio coming through clean.
Oh, you good, man. 100%.
Get that light. I'm gonna go without it. All right, man. I guess we good right now. I'm gonna hit this light.
All right.
Uh, see how we got it. All right, so we're gonna give it a go, man.
Okay.
Sheesh. It's a it's an honor and a pleasure to begin this journey of kicking off this objectively aggressive, and I think I want to start doing this until I don't want to do it anymore. And the reason I say that is because, man, we were talking today. I'm gonna have a little shout out. We were talking today, and I just felt like every single thing that we were saying should have been recorded and archived for right now, and a time capsule for the future generation. And I think that this is an opportunity to just be very aggressive and, like you said, out front. I mean, out front with our message that there's nothing to hide. But I
Oh,
still think there's some covert going on, you know. We
oh,
still
100%, man. I think you hit the nail, man. I feel like we have conversations, but when we talk about archiving data, but this is important because it's historical.
right.
Because the first history was oral history. You know, it was just me telling you a story, and then you telling that story to somebody else because we couldn't read or write. So
Right.
so now we are able to document, and it's a very powerful tool.
Okay, okay. So let's start. Everybody's doing it, and I feel like some people are doing it, and it's not necessarily conducive to what's needed. But hey, that's what freedom of speech is, right? As I sit up here and mess with my light,
Oh
I'm
yeah.
gonna get it together one day. Um, so with this inaugural kickoff for objectively aggressive, I want to kick it off in a format so we can just keep it real and just stay structured. So this is our sweet serenade to the evolution of religious thought. Mm. I would like to consider this like um a series. I wanted to call it the Lake House Effect series.
I see. I see. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know what I mean? And so, regardless of what it is, because sometimes you can't tell people exactly what to do, but that lake house effect being the warning or the guide, right? I think either or, you take it how you live, you take it how you live is what we used to say.
Yeah.
Get it how you live.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, because there's going to be deconstruction involved in the process of learning
It
because
has to be.
because you're going to have to come to some hard truths, and that's people who you love and trust told you things that were not true, and that will shake your foundation, because if that wasn't true, then what else did they tell me that wasn't true? And when people we care about mislead us, and sometimes not of their own volition, because they're misled too.
Right.
So all they were doing is just passing down the the misinformation to you, and you accepted it like it was truth. And that's why when I've had to deconstruct in my own world, it's very personal, it's very private, and sometimes it can't be done in a group setting. It has
Oh,
to be, the information comes, and then but you got to wrestle with it.
so my dad told me, because the way these things look, they look different to other people. And so when you're wrestling with these people can call them demons or these introspections, like trying to share these with people who have never experienced it. It's speaking a different language, and sometimes it feels somewhat alien,
Well,
because people can't recognize. So with that thought, as we move into this evolution of religious thought, so the intro would be, okay, so I'll set the platform, right? We live in a world right now where we need to be very aggressive, and how we approach things, right? Be very tactical, but be tied to the strategic mindset of there's an overarching goal that we need to get after. So tactically, we're going to break things down, to the level that lay people can at least hear certain things and be like, okay, that resonates. That resonates. Okay. So the intro to religious thought is to break down the terms. And so what we're going to be talking about is how do people digest what we're really about to get into.
yeah. Yeah. And so you brought up a good point, man, when you start talking about digesting in terms, because, some of the terms get used interchangeably, religion, spirituality. One is external, one is internal.
Correct. Correct.
And so when you start to talk about how the external affects the internal, then you start to muddy the waters,
Right.
because you can do things that are spiritual for religious purposes, and you can do things that are religion that have that same spiritual purpose if it's what you're thinking you're getting out of it. And I think that that's part of the challenge, is to decouple from ideology first, because religion is ideology, it's doctrine. And see, one of the biggest problems that we have, it's who are you to challenge 2,000-year-old teaching? Who are you to challenge the church fathers? Who are you to go against all this established teaching and doctrine? Well, who are you? And see, that's the problem. Religion says that I am a follower first, a thinker second.
Okay, so there's some disciplines that has taught us that to be a true leader, you have to know how to follow.
Well, when you start to talk about following, though, the question then becomes, is that follow to what end? Because a lot of times a blind person cannot lead anywhere. You've heard the saying, in the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king. And so we have looked at blind guides. Okay. So essentially, if the dude that I'm following is lost, he can't tell me he lost.
Right.
So that's humility.
Okay.
And with humility, I have to say, I don't have all the answers. You don't have all the answers, but together we can reason together. Like, for example, come, let us, you and me, reason together. And if it's reasonable, then we can build off of that reason. And so what happens with religion is, when something is not reasonable, they say, have faith. They say, trust it. But I'm like, no. You can't do that. You can't say have faith and then reason with me.
Okay.
So we have to have reason first, and then you can use your faith and your dogma afterwards. But
so why is reasoning? Reasoning is so important, because reasoning gives thought to any decision that you make.
Yes.
Right. So any decision that you make, it has to be a reason that you do it. There has to be a rationale. Yes. But then there needs to be some sort of emotion tied to it. Like, why am I doing this? What does it matter to me? And you remember from when we were talking earlier, it comes down to you're doing it out of love or fear.
Yeah. Motive. Yeah.
Okay. So the motive being love and fear when it comes into this religious thought. And is it because loved ones are teaching you this stuff? You have no other choice sometimes, but these people are nourishing you, and you're running to them for survival, and they're teaching you these things. So
it's called the falling away. Some people call it existential crisis. Some call it midlife crisis. It's when you start to think for yourself for the first time ever.
Oh.
When you begin to do that, it is dangerous.
Yeah.
Because thinking is difficult, because Correct. It requires you to be able to disprove what you've been taught by reason. For example, if you read the Bible, it says in John chapter 1, in the beginning was the word, right?
Beginning was the word.
But what does the word mean in Greek? The word is logos. That means
logic.
So logic. That was so the Greek but logic in the Greek is also translated as reason.
Reason, yes, for sure.
So in the beginning there was reason, there was logic.
Reason, but so in the way in my discipline, right, in my leadership theory, logic and reason sit juxtaposition to each other, but are not the same.
They're not, because reason is subjective to the individual. For example, something may be reasonable to me that may be irrational to you. Absolutely. That may be unreasonable to you. So reason, that's why we are told to come do what? Reason together.
Correct.
Because if I'm reasoning by myself and I'm on the committee of one, I may have my great reasons. But you might come in and be like, that's not a good reason. No. And now I have to hear what you say with now I have to use my logic to validate your reasoning.
Correct. And so with that goes directly into why the name of this podcast is Objectively Aggressive, right? Like it's taking like, hey, everybody has a reason to be on their high horse about something, right? You know, and so as we go off on whatever we go off on, we're trying to look at it objectively, but there's a reason that we're doing it. So there's a bias to it, but we're trying to check that. You know what I mean?
And the first thing you have to do is you have to identify your biases. Because if I don't tell you what I'm biased to, so I will share with you one thing about me. I will have a conversation with somebody and I am willing to change everything I thought, felt, or believe in that conversation at that moment if you can reason better.
That's what I mean. That's what me and you were talking.
Because I don't have any belief that I hold so closely that you can't unreason me out of. But I will tell you, if you're going to unreason me out of it, you better do a lot of scholarship.
Oh yeah, that's what I'm saying. And that's why. So like as we matriculate through this, you know, I think tying our disciplines together will give more. I can't say, I can say 360 for me, and you can attest to 360 perspective for you, because if we put our backs together, you know what I mean? We that's the tactical understanding that if there are two people having to take this on, me and you understand that from a tactical military understanding of having somebody six.
Yep.
And so understanding that as we speak these terms, continuously matriculating through, I think it's important that we establish that there are terms that are synonymous with each other at a certain time, but as it's applicable to us, they're mutually exclusive for what we're talking about, right?
Oh, yeah.
And that's the beauty about what you do, being able to line up those events, right? You know what I mean? Like that is directly and my system thinking, you know, being able to bring it together, like, hey, the analogy for that is this. And so it's important that these terms are understood, that the rationalization for why we do things needs to be tied to some sort of logic, but we need to change the logic about why we do a lot of the things that we do.
Oh yeah, but you're thinking about the foundation of all knowledge starts if we don't have evidence, if I can't observe it with my eyes, if I can't feel it, then we have to use a priori or a framework or a theory to explain the phenomenon. We have to have something that fills in the blank for us that we can't prove. And so whether you're religious, whether you're atheist, whatever you believe, it starts off with the foundation that you have no evidence. You have no evidence of a Big Bang, but you didn't see it, but you can deduce through logic that something happened. But what I find out what happens in most instances is that people, if the premise is faulty, the conclusion will be an error.
Right.
So we have to make sure that we don't start off with a premise that is faulty, because we will essentially we will go, but people don't have the ability sometimes to spot the error until they're already in the argument.
Correct. I mean, but that's what we're talking about, introspection through
Yeah.
dialogue, and that happens. And I think it's appropriate, to address the fact that with the initial attempt to understand religion, like you said, it's the accountability system, because you recognize that the pleasures of life drive people to take to cut corners in life. You
Yes.
cut corners because it's just easy. Your brain just wants your life to be easy.
Yeah.
At the same time, life is a struggle, and so we will always try to cut corners. And as we know that about human beings, we created this accountability system
Yeah.
that manifested and evolved into the multifaceted disciplines that we have today,
Yeah.
but all tied to some sort of deity, most of them.
Well, yeah, if you go back to Egypt and you look at the Sphinx, why is a lion body have a head of a human? Because the Egyptians understood that humanity is animal. We are the human without the mind. We are animals. The lion was symbolic of power, of animal instincts. And then the mind would control the beast, which is man. Man is the beast. Man, we are the ones who, without the mind, like I said, the only reason we don't pee on trees is because it's not socially acceptable.
Who doesn't pee on trees?
Well, I'm saying, the reason that most people don't pee on trees
because they ain't gotta go bad enough.
Well, because no, but that's important, because a lot of the times when you talk about controlling the beast, the animal of us, that's what the Egyptians started off. The Egyptians were the first ones to really codify a belief system. So when you start talking about the Assyrian, the Egyptians, you start to see the evolution of the thought coming from this first understanding that man is beast if he's not connected to the mind.
Right. Okay. So shit. Listen, you think about that in real talk right now. Like, you start drinking, people be on drugs, you get animalistic, right? You get in group think situations, and sometimes you don't even need drugs, right? You just turned up on adrenaline and stuff like that. So you people find ways to lose the mind.
Oh yeah,
and so being cognitive ease, like being with the group and being able to just assimilate into a group and have the pressure of making decisions taken away because everyone else is doing it, is a beautiful thing to have. And which is why our parents always used to say, well, if everybody go jump off a bridge, are you going to do it?
You're like,
so
why are they jumping off the bridge?
Why are they jumping off the bridge?
Is the bridge fault collapsing and they're jumping off for safety?
More questions need to be asked.
Well, that's the Socratic method. The Socratic method is the art of questioning. And so one of the things religion teaches you is don't question, believe.
Right.
Anytime you tell me to believe something, my first thought is you don't know what you're talking about.
Oh, bet. That's exactly what's going on. But if you take that same framework of what I was saying, okay, so to question something is to be curious or to be concerned.
Okay.
Right.
Accepted.
So the concern is, why is religion such a big deal right now, when in the original thought it was just to help keep us in order morally, right? So morally, we just want people to let's just all get along, right? And so why?
I would only argue that before morality came into question, the idea that there was an order to the universe.
Okay.
So from the disorder, from the chaos came order. So everything that happened after that was a derivative. Morality was a derivative of order, of structure. To the reason that the sun rotates on the axis that it rotates on, the reason that it rains. So if we don't understand the order, it creates chaos externally. So nature has balance. So I believe that since nature has balance, we start to see that we need balance also. So,
Order of operations, right? Order of operation.
yes. And so the order, it's the design. If it's design, it has a designer. And so what happens in most religious thought is that designer has a term called deity, God, etc. And but that's where you have to be careful, because saying God is like saying cereal. There are many different types of cereal. So you have to be specific when you say God, that you're not talking about somebody else's deity. See, we say God is a generic term, but it's not generic. It's very specific. There's polytheistic thought that says that the God that I'm speaking to is the God of war. Right. I'm speaking to the God of, like, Nike is the God of athletics.
Okay.
So if I need athletic strength, I'm going to pray to Nike. I'm not going to pray to Apollos. You know what I mean? Because each God has their function.
Wow. Wow, that's interesting. So if you take that concept, right? Because you mentioned something about when you get your own conscious thought.
Oh, yeah.
And so, studies show that the reason that imagination is so important in children before the age of like 7, before they have the conscious thought of remembering and understanding the application of life, imagination is so important to the function of the brain.
Oh, yes.
Right. And how things work and what the brain is creating as expectation of life. Yes. And so when we talk about praying to the Nike gods and stuff like that, like you remember, I remember praying to like the Nike guys or the Jordan guys or whatever shoes I was wearing when I was playing a sport at a young age. Like, oh my God, I put on these good shoes and I'm about to, take off and just do a whole lot of goddamn damage. You know what I mean? Because of these shoes, because I prayed to God in the shoes, because I was taught don't ever put anything over God. Well, but I'm gonna make sure I sprinkle a little something on these shoes, right? God help these shoes.
Yeah, but that's why I believe that when you start talking about the evolution of thought, the God that you needed for that occasion is the one who need to be invoked.
Well, so let's break that down. Let's break that down. That is taking a belief.
Yes.
Period. Point blank.
Yes.
A belief that you need to draw from a certain strength.
Yes.
And have faith in that and believe
yes.
that you can do that and walk with an attitude that you're about to do it.
Yes.
And so everything else should line up. And if you've prepared for it, you remember what we said, luck, luck is nothing but the opportunity
preparation
meeting each other, right?
Yep.
And so that, but that's what life ends up being. And so, okay, so with that, with life being that, as we try to have an order of operation here, so we'll say there's a lot of capping going on, right? Capping being like people on that bullshit.
Yeah.
Right. And this inaugural event, like, it's a little rusty, it's a little rudimentary, but we're keeping it real. It's, I make sure everything remains raw, old dirty bastard type shit. And so, confident opinion, man. We talking about some serious heavy hitting stuff, and religion can be very, very, very touchy. But yeah, let's get into some very confident opinions that could offend some people. Let's get a little aggressive.
Oh, so I will tell you, man, I find that as a principle, one of the things I think is I try not to tear down things that people rely on or in. But what I find happening in most instances is that people that want to be challenged are already looking for the truth.
Yeah.
They're already looking. But so I will tell you, one of the things that I've seen happen in most instances with religion, I've seen people, they don't want to question authority. They don't want to challenge.
To.
Yeah, well, like, you know, it's like my pastor said, so it's gospel. Like
They've been taught not to do it because that's the cultural relativism
well, yeah,
that's being implemented at the house and at school.
but
Don't question the government. Don't question God.
But how can I grow if I can't ask you questions?
There's no point. That's the point. You're not supposed to grow.
Well, if you're not growing, then you're dead.
If you're working, it makes it seem like you're having progress. That's why the American dream is absolutely true, because a nightmare is still a dream.
And where the challenge comes in is that what happens when you so if you take religion off the table, what are you left with? And I think for some people, they would be scared because they would be afraid to have to think for themselves.
Yeah, but
it'd be frightening. Like, what would I have if I couldn't go to this place every week and structure my life off of? And so when you are excavating a building, you're trying to build a structure. You want to build a cornerstone of something that is foundational, that can't be moved. And so that's, I believe, one of the biggest challenges when it comes to talking about religion. Why it gets touchy is because people think you're trying to remove their cornerstone from them.
You're asking people to think for themselves, and people don't know how to think for themselves.
Well, yeah, but that's the beauty of it. The beauty of it is, if I want power, there's nothing better than a bunch of people who don't want to think.
Yeah, for sure. That's how Trump got exactly the way he got, right?
Yeah, because when you have to have people who don't want to think, all you have to do is give them tribalism. My tribalism.
Tribe. Okay.
Yeah, my tribe. So
buzzword, aggressive. Yeah. That's a OA buzzword. Tribalism.
Yes.
Okay. So we're talking classism, tribalism, racism, right?
Yes.
We're talking tribalism right now.
Well, because the goal of tribes is to get more power. That's all it is.
Okay.
So at the end of the day, I believe that the central aim of religion is power, as is meant as today. It's, I need power. But at the same time, you can get power two ways. You can get power by being competent, or you can get power by using force, by using authoritarian. So that's how you get to the pyramid. You can crush your competition, or you can outsmart everybody to the top.
And so I have a saying for OA. It's negotiation or annihilation.
Yes. It's you can have the Bible, or you can have these bullets. Convert or die.
Hey.
And so most people, if you are a true believer, you're gonna accept a martyrdom complex, because you have people. You know, one of the things about the Bible that I find out to be very interesting, you know, before Jesus died, he told people, he said, you know, his disciples asked him a question. He said, what is going to be the signs of your coming and your return in the days? What should we expect to see? And Jesus said, you know, many people will come in my name. And you look at that word name in the Greek, it means authority. Okay. That means people are not going to come and saying they're Jesus Christ. They're going to come and say, Jesus Christ sent me.
Right. Okay.
And that's why I think a lot of people are deceived, because right now, if somebody came out and said, I'm Jesus Christ, we'd all think he was crazy. We'd all think that David Koresh, he's lunatic. Right, but if he said, I come in the name or the authority of the Christ, we're like, well, okay, me too. And so that's part of, I think, why religion has been so deceptive for people, is because you have people who are misappropriating the scripture, the Bible, for their own purposes, and not its truth of its stories. Because I tell you right now, you know, if you want something controversial, that ain't nobody living in the Middle East named Matthew, Mark, Luke, or John.
Right.
Like, the names don't even make sense, bro. These are English names. Why are 2,000 years ago there's a Matthew, bruh? Mark, Luke, John. Come on, bro. These names don't even fit with the region.
Boy, you just hit that one out the park. Let me tell you something. That was a confident opinion. Hey, let's take that confident opinion and get aggressive as AF, right? Let's get aggressive AF right here and talk about how people who buy into religion are actually buying into the pawn the pawn mindset of being like mowed down. You're being taught to
Oh,
be
yeah.
victims.
Oh, bro. So I will tell you this, man. So religion is based on a faulty premise that if I do what you tell me now, I will go to some afterlife when I die. So, like, hey, take the suffering now because there's something better waiting for you. But the
Yeah,
problem with this teaching and the problem with this thinking is nobody has come back from the afterlife to tell us this. So you got to believe that.
that
And
part.
and I will tell you this right now: the people who teach that to you, they got their heaven right now. Right now. They got their gold plated ceilings right now. And
Hey,
they know that if they can use that fear like you're talking about,
right,
so like I don't want to go to the afterlife, and they don't even understand the origin of this teaching.
right.
So when you start to talk about that fear, and this is why it's perpetuated, because they believe if I die in my belief, I'm gonna get 72 virgins. I'm gonna get some reward. And my question becomes is if you're focused on the reward when you die, it makes you not focus on power now.
Because you can only focus on one thing at a time.
Well, good.
Right.
Yeah, good.
Right. So if you're being told to not focus right now, focus on later, let
Bruh,
me focus on right now. Well,
that's what a magician does. Look at my left hand, and then my right hand is eating your lunch.
right.
But you know what? I will tell you this. The church, the Catholic Church specifically, they had a practice called indulgences where you could buy your way into heaven. Essentially, you could buy your way out of purgatory.
I remember that.
And they were doing that because they were trying to build all these cathedrals, and they was running out of money. And it was like, wait a minute.
It was a religious thing.
Yeah, they was trying to get people's money now to buy heaven later. And my thought process is, well, if you want heaven that bad later, and you're not concerned about life now, you go shoot yourself.
Right.
But you can't do it unless you do what I tell you. But these were the people who would not let you read the book.
No, they wouldn't let you read. You can't know the structural frame.
Take my word for it. That's what it was. Hey, look at this robe I got on. Look at this.
Oh yeah, check it out, right? Hey, if you think I'm lying, look at all these wonderful things.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Look at all these earthly blessings I have right now. Like I tell you, man, the reason we get so caught up and deceived is because we think if somebody got a Cadillac and a nice house, they bless the God. Like, look, he got the favor of God on him because he got a Cadillac. And I'm like, bruh, you realize that there's a God in the Bible called Mammon, Mammon. It's the God of wealth, of substance, and this is who they worship. They're worshiping a God now called Mammoth in order for you to give you their stuff. Hey, I want 10% of your paycheck because God wants to build his house. And I'm like, wait a minute. First off, he said that his house will not be made with human hands. So what you building? You're building your house. You're building your house, calling it God's house, and then wanting me to subsidize it. And I'm like, wait a minute, bro. No. See, he told him, when you go back to this is the thought of religion. He said, listen, the evolution of religious thought is for God to be inside of you.
Yeah.
That's eventually it's to be you are essentially an emissary or an ambassador of God. However, the tenets are not the same because your God, I might have to go Old Testament on you, right? And I'm like, look, there was a lot of genocide in the Bible.
Oh yeah, for sure.
God, like, look, go kill the Hittites, the Amorites, the Amalekites, kill everybody, right? And so why? To go and get their land. So they use religious thought to slaughter people to take their land. And we doing the same thing today. We're using religious thought to slaughter people to take their land.
For sure.
So religious thought, if you follow it, even from the Bible, it's slaughter, genocide to take what you want. Because if I say God told me to do it, I'm absolved. God said it. And that's why I believe the danger of religious thought is because you can justify any act if you believe you are doing it for a deity.
Right. And that's the rationalization. That's the rationalization that can exonerate somebody from their behavior right? And then there can be a certain group, social group, whatever group that supports whatever they like.
Yep.
They can say, "Oh, that makes total sense to me,"
Oh yeah.
right? And
Because
so,
when your religious beliefs and your political beliefs line up, you made God in your image, not not the other way around.
sure, which is so. So let's talk about this. Let's talk about. Let's get to the part of aggressive where we talk about what's the difference between me and you. And that ain't necessarily me and you, but we're having a conversation about how, of course, Christianity would be the religion right now. I mean, when you conquer a people or a land, you make them pray to your God.
Well, see, and that's the beauty of it. So the beauty of it is, I don't need you to pray to my God if you pay me tribute. Like, see, the Greeks learned something that was very powerful. The Greeks said, listen, you can keep your God if you want, but when we call on you for troops and soldiers, you have to pay us a tribute. And so when you look at Persia, when you look at Rome, the thought, so they realized that we did not need to give these people our God, because we did not need them to come into our territory. It was only when you came into their territory was their belief system involved, because
That sounds like jurisdiction. That sounds
yeah,
like religious
well,
jurisdiction.
yeah, because they understood something, that I want your fealty, I want your loyalty. And if I can get your loyalty without any other issues, then just give me your loyalty. Give me your loyalty. And see, what we have learned is that through that process, we have created peoples who have retained their religious thought over time. Because the Christianity argument has only really been in world history. If you look at the totality of it, Christianity is probably the longest span since its inception. But when you
Right.
start to look at the thoughts that led up to it, a lot
Mhm.
of Christianity has paganism in it. Like
Right.
Sunday. Sunday in the Roman Empire was the sun god's day of worship. It
Right.
was never the Sabbath. We know that, the scholars know this. We know that Easter is a pagan god of fertility. We know that they ain't got nothing to do with Jesus. You know what I mean? But these were customs that were brought into the church in order to keep people connected to the thought process. Like if you read the Bible, right? There is not one scripture that says anything about a nun. There's no nuns, but the
Yeah.
nuns were the people who took care of the temples of the gods. They were
Right.
the virgins who would
Right.
stay and die and keep the temple up. But they
Right.
were like, look, we want to keep this practice because we don't want to alienate or isolate this segment of the population who believes that custom. So you
Right.
had Christianity was this big smorgasbord of all these customs and traditions and put under one umbrella. Called
Right.
Christianity, boom, believe.
And so, okay, so let's take that same thought process with whiteness, right? Right? Because at some point in time, like there was a segregation of Anglo-Saxons and the Europeans, and at one point in time they were calling Irish and Italians words that eventually black folks
Yeah.
became those words, and the Italians and Irish end up turning around calling us the same thing, and they assimilated into that culture. And
Yeah.
at some point in time, maybe 1920s or something like that, they were holding legal processes and procedures to determine whether ethnic groups were white. So whiteness is a property, just like religion is a property.
Oh yeah, and then you had the people who were passing, the one drop rule, the octoroon, quadroon. But one of the things that I've learned is that when you start to talk about social constructs, classism. See, most people realize what America would look like if there were no black people here. We look like Europe.
Yeah.
Officially, We be policed differently. We understand that. If we got into a philosophy that we are here, some say under duress, but we are here making the best of a social construct that is a class system, and we just so happen to be at the bottom of that system.
Correct.
But there's always been this throughout history. This is not a new phenomenon. You know, if you go back into the British, English civil wars, you always had class struggle. And you always had that. Unfortunately, the class struggle in America is just about race, but it's socially constructed.
It's socially constructed to avoid the classism and the tribalism.
But first, it's for power.
Power. The classism is the power.
Wow. Yes. And so racism now is not really concerned with color as it is power.
Right.
That's why they're like, hey, if you're coming in from China or you're coming in from these Asian countries, you can be white. You know, if you are Hispanic and you are the light side Hispanic, you can get some of that South Florida whiteness.
Right. And so it's all about the immigration system when it came to, like everything was an overreaction to, to the past events, like the way that, Eastern Asian population was treated. And then after that, they developed a program to say, hey, we're going to let them in, but make sure we let all the smart ones in. And then we'll make them the ideal minority and make everybody else feel some sort of way about it. Right. Yeah. And so there's been all these strategic things that have been applied at the tactical level to segregate people further into this race complex, to conflate all these damn issues to make us confused.
Well, on your point of religion, I would say that the reason that there is a black church in America is because of racism. It was racism that started the AME church. It was racism that started the Baptists, that way they separate from the Northern Baptists, Southern Baptists. They
didn't go to church with the white folk.
Yeah, they didn't separate because they had theological differences.
No.
They separated themselves because of racism. And so when you start to look at it, you start to look at how deep it goes into the psychosis, is that I don't even want to worship the God who forgave us all, if that's what you believe, with you there.
Right. Okay, so let me introduce this other thought to you real quick then. Why would you want to? You're not even praying for the same things. No. You don't have the same struggles, right? Have you ever went to a white church? Have you ever went to a white church and you just in there and you don't even move the same? It's like,
hey, you got your hymn book. You're like,
you got the little hymn book. The collection plate come around, you be like, I need to get a little bit of this. Thank you, Lord. You know what I mean? Like, shit.
But therein lies the challenge for us. And I think it was Malcolm or Martin. Malcolm said the most segregated hour in America is 12
o'clock on Sunday.
And so we already know that. Yeah. And so one of the things that so if you are oppressed, you're praying that your oppressor stops oppressing you.
Correct.
If you are the oppressor, you're praying for status quo. Hey, keep me in this role.
Correct.
My season, my breakthrough, my harvest, my miracle,
all that normal stuff.
Yes.
All right. So take that harvest conversation, right? Before there were all these social constructs and issues and stuff, this is what you were praying to deities for. Yes. You were praying to the deities for the harvest and
make it rain.
Make it rain. So this is what church was originally for.
Yes.
Before, I won't say originally for, we'll say the original construct of religion for a certain people who were unoppressed was just keeping people in line and praying for the harvest.
Yeah, because we know they made a slave Bible that was just for slaves. They took out 90% of the Old Testament. They took out about 50% of the New Testament. They made a little book and they highlighted slave, obey your master as this is your work unto God. They highlighted these passages because they wanted us to know that if we believe God, because slavery was your position that God gave you. Right. It's like, hey, white person didn't make you a slave. God made you a slave, and he made me your master.
And I'm the best master, right?
Yes. And that is the psychosis that we're stuck with, is this master complex. Because it does not just affect us. They still think with this master complex.
Okay.
They
So
still think that way.
let's get into a cocky explanation then, right? You say a master complex, right?
Master complex.
The master complex, right? Okay, so there's a lot of people out here who thinking they got it going on, whatever, right? I call it spectacularly regular, right?
Okay.
And so I made a song called Spectacularly Regular,
Yeah.
like spectacularly regular. I know that I am better than a lot of people getting the shine, so now I'm telling them,
Yep.
right? And so the regularly spectacular is like, okay, you got this master complex, right? And so we find ourselves with certain things being our master, right? And so, hey, listen, there's a lot of people, and we all got our masters, like, and you know, Killer Mike and Run the Jewels with LP in them, right? They say kill your master, right?
Yep.
And so the master,
And music, you want to own your masters.
you want to own your masters,
You want
right?
to own your. You want to. I want to be the master of me.
Master, but that's the difference between, okay, so that gets back into what's the difference, but back to our Cochlear explanation,
Yeah.
that's the difference between independence and autonomy,
Mm.
right?
Okay.
Like, people don't even understand it.
Hey.
Andy,
That
shit did make sense back then when I was that age, but
Yeah.
now autonomy, like, oh, you want an independent woman? No, shout it.
Mm.
It's not all just about that, but I do understand the thought
Yeah.
process, right? And
Yes.
so the Cochlear explanation, I think, is sometimes when you sit at this higher consciousness, right, this higher vibration, right, you understand that we're trying to break the chains of all these masters that have been like lording over our lives.
And we when we say somebody is possessed, we don't say it in the right context.
Okay.
Because what possesses you can be material. Like
Okay.
my car is a possession,
Right.
but if my car is tied up into who I am, it possesses me.
For sure. And if your life is tied up into that car and that car stops working,
Yeah.
you're surely at the mercy of that car.
And so when I talk about possession, what has happened is the worst possession that I've ever seen is ideological possession. When a thought possesses your mind. See, when a thought possesses your mind, it does not listen to reason and logic, because the thought possesses you. It will defend itself based on its own reasoning,
Right.
which and it won't allow us to reason together. Because I will tell you, when somebody is possessed with a thought, my first reaction is to challenge the thought, not the person.
Oh, for sure. But well, okay. And you know, this is of course, there's a lot of interruption that comes with us, but you challenge the thought.
Challenge the thought.
Why?
Because one of the things about thoughts is that without, like, it's a quote from Thomas Paine. He said, "A long time of not thinking that something is wrong gives it the artificial appearance of being right."
Okay, so that's why I talked about that acronym I created.
So, wait.
Words, action,
Action.
intention, timing, and then you got the unknown, right?
Unknown.
So if you only have words, cool, good shit. If you only got action, you know what they say about that? Like, when you point your finger, you're pointing like 3 or 4 back at you.
Yep.
When it's only intention, it's like, you know, they say good intentions pave the road to hell.
Yep.
And then timing is just like just wandering, right? So you have all those things in order to check who you are.
Yes.
But check, like, when you hear something too, and people should, if people are doing that just for a second, because that emotional thinking is that system 1 fast thinking, man. And like, system 1 fast thinking is for survival of your life, bro.
Yes.
Like, hey, there's my dog right here. Luckily, that's my dog, because if that wasn't my dog, I would have some system 1 thinking to do. Like, there was this random damn dog in my house.
Yeah. And you don't know where you are at with somebody in the cognitive process at the timing of the conversation. For example, you could be having a conversation with somebody, and at the moment you speak, you can see the light bulb come on in their head.
Yeah.
Literally, you can see the eureka moment. Like,
Yeah.
boom. It's like
Uh-huh.
they just got it. And but you don't know. They could have been in years teetering on a thought. And that one thing that you said on that one day was the boom.
Right.
And that is where I think when it comes to the challenge of thought is because it's so quick. It can be quick to you, but it was slow to them.
Right.
You think you said something profound to them, not knowing that you just was building on what people have been saying. And now
right.
that
you were to finally, what they say, you know, the straw that broke the camel's back with the thought that it finally came through, right?
Yes.
Which is why people yell at their kids, but their kids get so tired of hearing it from the same person, but they hear from somebody else, but like, oh yeah.
Makes sense. And that's where I believe when we start talking about religion is the biggest problem, because you start to get around people who share your thinking and they reinforce thought.
That's group think.
Yes. And when you talk about belief, group belief,
right?
It's when you talk about psychosis, it's when you lose touch with reality.
Right.
But if I only construct my reality around people who think like me, who's insane or not? Is it me or you?
Right.
Who is the one who's not in touch? Because I'm in touch because everybody around me shares my reality.
Correct. So everybody is sane, and anybody who wants to break rank is the crazy one.
You the crazy one. And therein is where the ideological possession, it's usually done in person. It's in private. It's deconstructing. It's meditating. It's in the midnight hour when it's just you and your thoughts.
Your shower thoughts.
And oh, bro, hey, I done had many of breakdowns in the shower when I had to, bro. The water
to it now. Therapeutic.
The water hits you. You just like, man, all these years, but the beauty of it is you said something earlier, man. But when we were talking, it's like you have to break something down to build it up.
Yeah.
And if we've thought to ourselves, like, I spent 30 years building this building that I thought was me. And now in boom, 30 years, and you're like, where is it at? What can I salvage? What can I take from that? Because I don't believe it was a waste, but it was like, you know what? Was it constructive? You know, when my daughter asked me about religion, you know, I'm not gonna sell her anything.
Right. No.
I'm not selling you anything.
No.
I'm not selling you anything. Because if I do not want to, I want to break this cycle of indoctrination at a young age. Because I want her to develop her reasoning skills enough so that she can question what I say. My daughter, 8 years old, and she hit me with some hit ones. She hit me with some boom.
Boom. Let me tell you something. So as we get to the 55-minute mark, man, your daughter, you know, allowing your daughter to be able to challenge you, right? So as we close out and get to the as we close out of the cocky explanation, and we're gonna move into our little quick money piece as we close out. There was a couple of things I want to summarize with what you were saying with that religion and that daughter thing, right? So there's something that they're talking about that's big right now with psychological safety. So put a pin in that real quick. I'm gonna get back to it. So the whole thing with religion, the religion is coming down to, so SALT, we talked about SALT, and since this is an inaugural, I'll be explaining SALT in one of my other videos with objectively aggressive, and we'll get back into that because me and you gonna work on our disciplines, and I want you to know a lot about SALT because I want you to dissect it.
Yeah.
And so with the moral foundations coming from Dr. Jonathan Haidt, harm and care, fairness and justice, loyalty, sanctity, we'll say authority and liberty. When you're talking about religion, there's a lot of different things that go into it, but there's an authority that goes into that, and there's a loyalty that goes into it first, right?
Yeah.
But you think it leans on the tenets of harm and care, fairness and justice. But the way religion is being used now, it falls into the loyalty and authority,
Yes.
and then it starts pressing upon people's liberties,
Yes.
harm, care, and fairness and justice, right?
Oh, yeah.
And the sanctity, excuse me, sanctity is the number one penance. Sanctity,
Yeah.
authority, and then loyalty, and they all mix, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And so,
one dime after another.
right, they trickle down. And so, with that being in fact, it's so hard to break out of group think because you don't think inside of group think, and if you think outside of it, you're the crazy one, right?
Well, but there's a challenge because, see, I look at it is that the best spy knows the group think already.
Right.
So I remember, I'm not talking to a person, I'm talking to an idea. And if I can't differentiate that, I may get offended, but I'm not offended because you're not offending me.
Correct.
What's offending me is the thought that you are having and you feel the need to defend it. For example, the truth needs no defense.
Right.
If you have to defend it, then it's not self-evidently true. It's not objective. If you have to defend it, it's not objective. If I have to defend it, what's objective is that when the truth is self-evident. Look in the sky. Do you see the sun? Do you feel the heat, the warmth? Boom, you feel it. Okay. Now yes. Now, when we start to build on the truths, what we find happening is to what end? Because groupthink is a form of tribalism. It's a subset of tribalism.
Yeah, for sure.
That's why when Trump says something, no matter what he say, the tribe is going to get behind it.
Right.
Because the tribe understands that I have to be able to accept. Well, this is more like cult thinking too, though.
It's cult thinking.
It's cult thinking because the cult leader is always right.
It's cognitive ease. Yeah. You don't have to think.
Yeah, and it's the normalcy bias because because we're not used to our leaders being tyrannical.
Oh,
so we don't associate presidents with tyranny, with fascism, with these strongman tactics. With at least Nixon, he was wrong. He quit. He was like, hey, I'm doing the wrong thing. Right. So we have come to expect our leaders to be honorable, at least to the outwards.
Yeah.
We know behind the scene they are crooks.
Oh yeah.
But at least they put on the facade
right
of rightness. And so when you have somebody that challenges this idea that this person is not doing the right thing, it's hard for us to not use our bias. Like, well, he's probably doing the right thing because we want to believe. We want to believe this person don't want to support the country.
We don't have the psychological safety, right? Yes. And so we think we do, but there's a difference between peace and understanding, right? You have to have forever peace or indefinite peace. You have to have understanding. But if you only just go for peace, you eventually, if you're not being understood, that peace is eventually going to erupt. Right.
And peace is not the absence of conflict.
Correct.
It's the presence of justice. Because I will tell you this: if there ain't no justice, won't be no peace.
That's in riots and protests are the voice of
and we move religion because you have to remember the church used to just kill people who didn't fall in line.
Right.
They would burn you alive. They would send you to lions. That's so their way of dealing with somebody. They didn't put you in an institution. They just killed you. But then they realized you can't kill the truth.
That's crazy. So when you think about that, right? When you think about going back to what religion was actually doing,
murdering people,
and these stories are passed down. They're passed down. They don't look the same. So the psychological safety of understanding that if you hypothetically break ranks of this religion, you could die.
You could die.
Okay,
or we'll kill your reputation.
Or we'll kill the reputation. Either way, there's a death.
Yes.
Okay, so the psychological safety, right? So there's a doctor, I think it's Dr. Taylor, came up with this psychological safety thing, right? It said there's 4 stages to psychological safety.
Okay.
There's inclusion safety, there's learner safety, there's collaboration safety, and there's challenger safety.
Okay.
Right. The first level is inclusion, being able to even be there.
Yeah.
And be authentic is one level, right? Okay.
Yep.
Now you're safe to learn without learn all the information, right? No holding the information back. And then you're able to collaborate with your independent thought.
Yes.
And then with your independent thought, should somebody bring something up, you're able to challenge that and say, I detest that theory.
Yes.
That's psychological safety. And we don't have the psychological safety to challenge pretty much anything, because there are certain conversations I can have with some certain people. Like, let's just say my dad, shout out to him, right? He can cut me off with the authority of being my dad and religion. God said and my dad said. So what else do I need?
Yo, and so anytime somebody starts a sentence with God and said in it, my first thought is you try to manipulate me.
Boom.
My first thought is you have a weak argument and you have to pull the card out, because you cannot psychologically say that God didn't tell you to say something, whether true or untrue, because there's no way to verify it. Because God may told you, but he ain't told me. And if he ain't told me, then you telling me.
Okay.
Because what I do is I don't challenge people who believe that God has spoke to them.
Right.
Because there is no cure for that delusion. There is no cure for it.
Right. And so there's no reason to argue with it.
There's no reason. But what I will do is I will challenge the premise that it applies to me.
Correct. So,
because,
but when you take somebody like your parent, right? Your parent, which goes back into that post, which was made, forgive your parents because they were only dealing with what they had. Like, you can't hold. You must take what your parents are. You got to read through like a parable in the Bible to understand what's actually the message. If someone is like, God said this, because the intent sometimes is not to manipulate, it's to drive home a point. But it depends on who's saying it, right?
But context matters. Like, okay, God said this to Elijah. God said this to David. Is that principle? For example, if I go outside right now and see a UFO, and it's revealed to me a UFO, that's a revelation to me. But if I come back and just tell you I saw a UFO, it's not a revelation to you. It's just information.
It's information. It's hearsay. It's
hearsay. And more importantly, if you're using an argument that, books of the Bibles have names on them.
Yep.
Right. So this is God talking to Joshua.
Right.
Right. And so if I want to interpose myself into this character of Joshua and then transpose the message of Joshua onto myself, I can.
Right.
However, because he was talking to Joshua, it may not be applicable to me.
Right.
And therein lies, I think, the biggest challenge with religion, is because I can cherry pick anything I want.
Anything you want. That's
that's
confirmation and anchoring bias.
Yes, and that's why I don't use the Bible as a discussion point, because it's an appeal to authority. That's a fallacy. You're not right because you're right from the Bible.
Correct.
That don't make you right.
But so with that same thought, I think that there's much to be said, as we coming up on 6 minutes out for right now. We'll do that. It's much to be said that sometimes to reiterate a point with people who only think with the Bible, it's an introduction.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's much to be said about that. Ham, hold on.
Oh no, but so I think this. I will use what they wrote. For example, the Bible says this, and I'm only making this argument for you. For example, if somebody said, "Hey man, why does bad things happen to good people?" You've heard that before?
Yeah.
What would you tell them? Would you ever answer that question?
Why does because life ain't fair?
Well, hold that thought. Well, the Bible says there are no good people.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Jesus said there are no good people. So the premise of my question was faulty.
Damn. Yeah.
So I know I will read it only because I understand that we make up answers to fill in the gaps and don't use what was written. Because what was written is hard to apply it. For example, I tell people all the time, the Bible says, out of the mouth of every 2 or 3 witnesses, everything should be established. So it says that. So pretty much you can't take the testimony of one person. Even in a death row case, you cannot sentence somebody to death on the word of one person. So if I don't have a witness, and the Bible says that, so it needs a witness to itself. So that means if you're telling me God said something, where's the witness? Where's your witness? And that's scripture. That's from the Bible. You cannot establish anything. And what we do is we'll take one scripture, take it out of context with no witnesses to it, nobody else said it, and use that as some kind of doctrine to teach off of.
Boom.
Error.
Now, that's money. Let's talk about how that's money, how there's certain people like that will use Dr. Martin Luther King's that will just take this different. You know what I mean? You know,
you have to, yes. And so right now, listen, there are no secondary sources to any stories in the Bible. Did you know that?
Oh,
there isn't. Like the Bible is not a history. It's not a history book.
Right.
And so since there are no, for example, if you would say there were many things written in those days, right? There were many scholars like Josephus.
Right.
But the thing that you have to remember is that this was not a tradition or a custom of people who wrote things down.
Right.
It's like playing telephone.
Right. Telephone.
And so we know they have dated that the first letters that were from the Bible were written almost 100 years after.
Right.
Any event.
That's a nasty game of telephone right there.
Bro, but what you have to also remember is that the people who were writing it down were not even using the languages of the people who were speaking at that time. Bro, you don't want to talk about Hebrew, you want to talk about Aramaic, you want to talk about Greek, but these brothers speaking Latin. These brothers writing the Vulgate. Jerome, the Pope, was like, hey, Jerome, okay, translate this over in our language, but let me look at it, make sure and say what I want to say. For example, I tell people all the time, the name Lucifer, right?
Lucifer.
Yeah, the name Lucifer is only used one time in the Bible. One time.
The bringer of light.
Yeah, but you got to remember, that's Latin. That was written in Hebrew. So wait. So if bringer of light is lux, luz means Latin for light, right? Translucent, right? Lucifer, Luciference. That's the Latin word. But the origin of the word is not Latin. It doesn't mean light bearer. In Hebrew, it doesn't. It does in Latin. So how is that messing with our minds? It's because we're not reading it from the source that it was written in. Look at the word Hebrew. Look at the word Hebrew. First off, you won't find the word Lucifer in Hebrew because the word didn't exist. It didn't even exist.
Hitting them.
It didn't even exist.
Ham.
Huh? So go to Isaiah chapter 11 and you'll see the word Lucifer and you'll see how the context, right? And it ain't even about a celestial being. It ain't even. But you know why that doctrine is so important, right?
Why?
Because the thing is this, man. Religion is based off of a doctrine called free will.
Free will. God.
Lucifer in the story, Lucifer was this angel. He was a light bearer, and he rebelled. Now the question then becomes is whatever has God created that has rebelled? Because remember, when was the serpent created? In Genesis, right? God made the serpent, right? Now we're told he rebelled because he was beautiful, he lifted up his pride. This is right. But I'm thinking to myself like this: where is this story at? Then they go to Ezekiel 28 and talks about you were in Eden, the garden, and they're calling this law of double reference, right? So they're saying that even though this isn't the devil, it's referring to him.
Right.
And this is the challenge with Bible understanding and interpretation, is if you use one principle one time, you have to be consistent with the principle.
That's why it's called a principle.
Yes, it's a principle. And if you cherry pick it, because if you realize he's talking about the king of Babylon, Nebuchadnezzar, he's talking about the king. And one of the things that we've realized is that when we start to talk about the scripture, and this is a separate conversation about the religion, but when you talk about free will and determinism, the reason that is so much of a challenge for us is because if we don't have free will, if God made everything and he is the controller of everything, if he is the author of everything, then we have a role in it, but not the role we think we have. Like that you choose God. Well, either he chooses you. Like I was born a Muslim. I was born in Islam. We pray 5 times a day. And then let me tell you this, I wasn't doing it because I was doing it because that was what I was told. I didn't know what it was for, but that's the custom. And so when I talk to people about the Bible, you know, I study it like I'm studying a textbook for deconstruction.
Correct.
I'm not studying it for
ideological reason.
I'm studying it now to see how the context is. For example, I don't even have discussions with the Bible about people who don't know the Greek New Testament. If you don't know the Greek words, I won't discuss it with you. Because if you don't know because it was written in Greek, it wasn't written in English. And so when you start to, like, for example, we were talking before, you don't have a conversation about algebra if somebody don't know arithmetic.
Correct.
And when you start to talk about the scripture, one of the things, and this is the last thing I'll say about it.
No, you good.
One of the things that I find is the most pervasive thing that's misused is this concept of afterlife. And I will tell you this because you don't find any teaching of the afterlife in the Old Testament.
Okay.
It's not brought up.
Nah.
It's not brought up.
I don't recall.
Because there isn't, because every promise that God gave you in the Old Testament was while you were alive.
Right.
And every punishment was while you were alive.
Like you'll spend 40 years in the desert.
Yes, boom. But there was never a punishment that said, well, once you die, I'm going to torment you in this fire place of eternity. That's never brought up in the Old Testament.
Right.
It's not even brought up one time. So when you start to see, where did this teaching come from? Where's the origin of it? If it didn't start in the Old Testament, where is the origin? And now we go back to Egypt. The customs.
Right.
The traditions.
Right.
The God. That's why, like, you know how what's the first commandment? Thou shalt have no other gods.
Thou shalt not cover any other covenant.
Yeah. But in Greek mythology, when you die, you go to Hades.
Yeah.
So isn't Hades another god?
Hades was the god of
underworld. The underworld.
Yeah.
So why
did you ever play God of War?
I didn't.
Bro,
but why would a God who says have no other gods before me send you to another God when you die? Doesn't make any sense. It's not logical. It's not logical. And the problem with this thinking is that the word has evolved over time. So, for example, the word hell was not added into the Bible until the last couple hundred years. Did you know that? That if you look at the original text in the Greek, the word for hell is Gehenna, Gehenna. Gehenna was a field on the east side of Jerusalem where they burned the dead bodies at.
Oh shit!
It was like the refuge dump.
Okay.
So when you start to see the first usage of it is in Matthew chapter 5. And he says, if you call your brother fool, you are in danger of the Gehenna fire.
Okay.
Which was a fire that took place while you were alive.
Okay, so they threw you in the fire.
Yes.
Man, pause on that. My dog, of course.
Are you good, bro?
Come here. So, run that back. Hell was perpetrated by actual events going on next to Jerusalem in a
Yes.
fire pit.
Yes. And the fire never went out because there was always something to burn.
Okay.
And the worm never died because it was always eating on the dead carcasses. But when you understand how the thought became translated into afterworld punishment, now we have to go into Greek mythology, because Hades is Greek mythology, right? Right? We know it's mythology.
Right.
Zeus, Poseidon, this is called Greek mythology. So how did a Christian go to Greek mythology there? Like if I was from Iceland and I believed in Thor, if I died, I went to Valhalla.
Right.
But that's not what we're taught. So anyway, so what happened is between Malachi is the last book of the Old Testament, and then Matthew is the first book of the New Testament, right?
Right, Matthew.
In between those two books, there's 400 years of history. 400 years separate the Old Testament from the New Testament, right?
Okay.
Then the question then becomes, what was happening in world events during that 400-year period? Well, there was this dude named Alexander the Great. And he was taking Greek culture and Hellenizing people, groups. He was infusing Greek culture into their belief systems.
Right.
That's why, remember when Jesus was like, who do people say that I am? Right? Some say you're John the Baptist. Some say you're Elijah, right? Well, why are people saying that he is somebody else who was born 4 years before him?
What? Hold on. What? Hold on. So the question was Jesus asked, who do you think I am?
Who do people say that I am? And he wanted to know what they thought about who he was.
Right. Well, did his reputation precede him?
Yes, essentially. And so, but in Greek culture, they believe that your soul, when you died, could pass on, reincarnation. This is the belief of Judaism at the time.
Correct.
So when they say he was John the Baptist, they meant he was reincarnated as John and to fill his role. And in some say you are a prophet like Elijah.
Right.
So because that was their reference.
Right.
But the problem with this thinking is that we were never told that you are reincarnated into another body when you die.
Right.
That was Greek mythology thought.
Right.
And so anyway, so their thought became infused into Judaism, into the culture. So they did not have a separation between mythology and their teaching. They just mushed it into one.
Then they mushed it together.
And so there was a story about this guy who was born blind. And then Jesus asked him, he said, did he sin? Did his parents sin? And he was like, no, he was born this way. Essentially saying that they believe
reincarnated as a blind person.
And
for some sort of sin from some other time.
But that's not what we're taught.
Right.
We're not taught that.
Right.
Because we're told that the sins of the father don't affect the son. Like if your dad do a sin, it don't affect you.
Right, because that's what we're taught.
Yeah, well, because the idea of original sin is that we're all guilty because of Adam.
Right.
But that's a Pauline teaching.
Okay.
So my thought process is this: we don't use Paul for doctrine. We don't use Paul for doctrine because when Judas killed himself, they had to name a new apostle, right? They picked, you hear me? We froze? Oh, we froze. Oh, we froze. I think we froze. I don't know if you, sorry, bro. Oh, I think you froze. Oh, can you see, wave your hand? Hold up. Oh, I think we might max the time out, man. I'm gonna see. Hold up. Okay, let me see. Okay, I'm putting in the chat box.
You still there?
Yeah, you hear me?
Yeah, I don't know what happened.
Maybe does it have a time limit on it?
I'm sure it probably did, but it's got us at 123 right now. But we
Okay,
can.
no, yeah, we good, bro. Sometimes I get off my little tangents.
Oh no, you just like me, but you going down the roads that we need to. But we'll take that to transition
Yeah,
into the closing, man, because we can do this all night. But
yeah,
we'll do a better schedule, and
yeah.
I'll figure out some things and I'll work out the kinks. I think sometimes it was just better for me to go ahead and do it and then make some mistakes and
Oh
figure
yeah,
it
bro.
out. I love it. Military style, right?
Hey man,
So
we grow as we grow.
for sure. So I think as we exit, I think three things I would want from you in this one. So the first one, I'm gonna give a book, and I want you to give a book recommendation. And
Okay.
the first thing though, before we give the book recommendation, is we're talking about interchangeability of the word religion and spirituality. So, and a quick little 2 minutes, what you would say the difference is between religion and spirituality, your your book recommendation for the week, and a money tip.
Okay. Man, I really get to a point, man, where I believe now, and I say believe because I think that all spiritual truths start with your own belief, not what somebody told you to believe.
Right.
It's my belief that the journey is a journey of isolation until you get inclusion. But you have to not be afraid with spiritual to be alone and isolated with your thought, because you have to be able sometimes to forsake the comfort of religion and the group to have truths that are individual and personalized to you. And I think spirituality is getting comforted in a truth that no one can provide you. It's a truth that you can't get from a book. You can't get it from anywhere but the peace that you have from it. Whether it be if you believe that nature is God, if you believe that water is God, if you believe that people are God, whatever you believe, if it brings you a peace that is apart from others, and then you take that peace and you connect with others who share that struggle. And first off, starting off with the idea that I don't have all the answers. I don't know all the truths, but I am not going to close off the possibility or portal for truth coming into my life.
Okay.
Whereas religion tells me to accept and believe what somebody told you to believe, as opposed to what resonates for you. And that may be the case for some people. For some people, they may have had the peace just somebody be told to them. My book recommendation, man, I was just in Montgomery, Alabama.
Oh, just mercy.
Just
Yeah.
Mercy, man. It's a movie, but the book is better.
I got mine. I got my book. I can go
Hey,
for mine.
I like this book, man, because I find that there's a quote. There's a quote in this book, man. Oh man, he talks about that it's not the ideas in your mind that change the world, it's the conviction of your heart. So, there you go, bro. It's not the ideas in your mind that change the world, it's the conviction in your heart. And see, that's where I believe where knowledge can only take you so far.
Man.
But the conviction of your heart has to take you further. And my money tip, man, is I will tell you this, man. When it comes to money, my money tip is don't let it master you. But if it does master you, you have to remember that money isn't the root of all evil. The love of it is. The love of it is the root of all evil. And people just say money's root of evil. No, it's the love.
Right.
And I believe that we have to become educated on taking people who have historically been denied resources giving it to them, they're going to make foolish decisions, and that's okay. You're going to make bad choices. You're going to get the car loan that got 18% interest on there because you just want that car, because you don't realize that there's a difference. But I will tell people is that learn from your mistakes and don't judge yourself too harshly. Have grace with your mistakes, with your money. Have grace with yourself, because you're going to make some more, but don't beat yourself up, because this is what you have when you have people who have historically been denied resources. Like when I first got my first military paycheck, I went out and bought a bunch of stupid stuff I wish I could have had when I was high school.
That's all it is. We all overcompensating for stuff.
So I would say overcompensate, but have some grace, because it's normal.
That's what's up, man. All right, so I guess in my quick breakdown of spirituality and religion, I mean, without going too far, man, you know, spirituality is individual, when religion is an institution or organization, and they have a purpose, right? And so if they have a purpose, you need to understand that, right? Yeah. Understand the purpose, because I think it's logic over loyalty. Right? Logic over loyalty, because we all need social groups, right? To fit into for inclusion, because that's the normal human experience.
Yes.
But I like to say, because I believe in God, right? Because you have to have some sort of belief system to make you feel like you're doing something and there's a mission and purpose.
Yes.
And some people put those things of hell in place to give them the motivation, because they don't want to get in trouble. Stage one, moral development.
Yes.
So spirituality is on the higher vibrational end, and religion is on the lower end for people who don't understand.
Yes.
To be held accountable, and has now been weaponized, which is why spiritual growth and authentic power is the goal. And so I will tie my money tip into that, which is not going to be a specific. I'll give a philosophy, which is to understand that money is a tool, not the goal, not the total goal. It is a tool, right? Spiritual growth and enlightenment, evolution is the goal, and soul work is the work that we have to do. So if you line up your soul with the work, it shouldn't be work. It should feel like love. And if you love what you do, you can do it, right? And I would say with all that, my book recommendation is The Seat of the Soul by Gary Zukov.
You write that one.
I normally keep a copy of it, but I promise you, I throw these things. I can't say like Brett Favre no more, because he doesn't. Sheesh. But you know what I mean? I toss them out. But The Seat of the Soul, it talks about seeking authentic power, which is soul work. And so this is what I think we're doing, Ham, soul work. And with that, man, that's subjectively aggressive. You know what I mean? OA coming through first time, and I think it was success, man. So I want to thank you.
I'm honored. I'm honored to be the first guest. I appreciate you.
Hey, man, I'm all about that action. And like for real, if we I want to make this a thing, man. Like we have our Lighthouse series where we're, you know, this is a guide or a warning. Like take it how you want to, but regardless of what, it's light.
See it. Focused.
Yeah, bro. I'll catch you on the other side, man. Appreciate you. Later.